Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. This is our conversation about women in STEM. It's March. It's, Women's International Women's Day just happened. And so we're going to have a little conversation. I am Nina Wu. I work at Mind Research Institute as a creative content manager. And I'm joined today with Jay Flores and Danielle Boyer. If you two want to introduce yourselves.
I can go first. Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Boyer, and I'm a 20-year-old STEAM, which stands for Science, Tech, Engineering, Art, and Math, educator, inventor, entrepreneur, and author from Troy, Michigan. And my work focuses in diversifying and creating accessible STEAM resources for underserved youth, especially Indigenous youth like myself.
My name is Jay Flores. Over the last 5 years, I was the Global STEM Ambassador at Rockwell Automation, who is a wonderful partner and supporter of Mind Research Institute. And now I started my own business, Invent the Change. And my mission is to change the world by inspiring young minds to keep doing cool things with science, technology, engineering, and math.
Wow, I love those introductions, and I'm in great company. Yeah, so I think, we're here together today, and we're three great people to be talking about this. And very broadly, we're talking about women in STEM. And I guess when I first heard this topic, I was thinking like, like it's been heard, it's been done before. But, just to set the stage, like we all know that there's a gender gap and inequity in STEM fields. And the numbers like speak for themselves, and the culture and all that. So my question for us today, or to start us off, it's like, what can we add to that conversation? What are the insights and reflections we have? Like, what is this conversation in 2021 when we already know some things and the world itself is just activated when it comes to social justice and all that? Where do we have this? Let's pick it up from there. It's not really a question.
That works. Go ahead, Danielle, if you want to start.
Well, I honestly still think that there has to be a lot of discussion to be had in general, especially in the engineering sector, in the math sector. I still feel like my voice isn't being heard in many different places, from design conferences to the workplace, to my own classroom at university. And I feel like we not only need to continue to have these conversations like the ones we're having right now, but we also need to bring guys into it like Jay to talk about, okay, what steps can we do from there? And we also need to talk about how we can amplify organizations who are doing awesome work to uplift women in STEM, and what we can do as individuals to use our skill sets to help them do the work that they do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of organizations that talk about it, that say they support women, and I think they do. But in terms of what things are we doing to increase that access, to increase the awareness, and do some real needle moving work? It's great to support people in words, but we need to make sure that we're actually making changes that are breaking down barriers for young girls, that are making our work environments more inclusive and supportive, that are elevating young girls and women into places that they haven't been able to reach before. And so anything that organizations can start doing to take some actionable steps and get their organizations on board and support each other is super important. And I think that we also need to look at this environment and understand that it shouldn't be the way it is. And it's really frustrating. I remember when the light bulb switched for me. It was one of my first engineering automation conferences. And it was a very large event attended by tens of thousands of people from all over the world. They had to cover, I was looking up, they covered the women's bathroom sign with a male sign. They had to convert the female bathroom to male bathroom because there's so many men there and not very many women. And that was just like, the weirdest, saddest thing for me. And I wondered, like, how many other people see this as a problem or an issue, and why is this the case over, throughout the years? And so I think organizations need to look internally and say, hey, why don't we have kind of equity in this space, whether that's gender, ethnic, etc. And what are we doing to make some changes? And so if it's making sure that your interview panels are diverse and you're interviewing a diverse set of candidates, and if you happen to not be able to find some, don't just say, oh, there aren't any women in this space. Go out and do something about inspiring young girls to enter the space and removing those barriers. So I think we need to take a lot of the shift over to action instead of just talking about it.
Yeah, and I think then the onus lies within the STEM industry and the existing culture, because like, what is keeping women and femmes out, or like just making it feel hostile or not for us? And it takes, I think it's, when you talk about action, I think a lot of the action, it's not just about like finding more women. There has to be a lot of like interrogation work that has to happen. I think that's what this whole last year has been asking us all to do, is like, what can we and what do we need to change within ourselves? Because like, you can't just keep it going the way it's been. Like, there's a reason why this gender gap has happened. Like, I don't know, I start thinking about power and culture. And what's funny is that like, industries and like STEM isn't inherently gendered itself,
right,
but it's perpetuated by the people who, have gotten to be in the space that's made it gendered. Yeah. And then Danielle, you said earlier, like that idea of like not being heard, like when you're in a room, and that just resonates so hard. And because like, it is, and it's part of that interrogation work. Like, people need to like uncover their biases, and like, it's like, you have to interrogate within yourself. Like, what are your beliefs about people? When you look at a woman or a femme, it's like, if someone's looking at you, like, do I believe that you can lead? Do I believe that you can consult on technical specs? Do I believe that you can execute and do all the things? And like, there's just some people, I think, just culturally, what we've inherited is just like, no, I don't believe when I see you that you can do all those things. And so it's really shifting that.
I totally agree. And I think it's not about just recruiting women, as you said, but it's also creating a space in the workplace, within clubs, within institutions, within universities, to support the women through their journey. And I often see just the front end of that. Companies will do outreach days, and they won't do much beyond that. They're like, okay, we'll get, a woman into it. We'll get, a girl interested in like robotics and math. But beyond that, they're not going to create the system needed to support women in their own workplace. They won't listen to them. They won't have those conversations that are needed. And I even felt that within when I was in high school, and I was in a robotics team. And they like spent so much time and effort to recruit girls. But then once you were there, they didn't have that system in place to be able to say something about when harassment was occurring, or when people were saying, oh my gosh, you just can't be an engineer. You can't do it. It's impossible. They didn't have any systems in place to ever address that. And so I ended up leaving, as did many other girls, because they didn't have that in place. And I think that companies and individuals, as you said, need to look into themselves and say, okay, what are we doing to make a place supportive or not supportive? And I remember I was doing diversity training recently, and one of my friends actually said, women just aren't interested in engineering. And I'm like, why do you think that? And he was like, they come and they apply for jobs at my workplace, and they never stay. And I said, well, they are interested. You're just not creating a supportive enough environment for them to want to stay. And he was like, no, that can't be it. And I said, I know what kind of humor you have. It's not always conducive or like a nice environment to be in. I'm like, you guys are all men working in one place. I'm like, have you ever thought about what actions you are, what you're putting out there to the women in that workplace? And he's like, well, they just can't lift heavy things. I'm like, I may be 5 feet tall, but I can lift heavy things, And I'm like, if someone wants to be there, they're going to be there. So at a point, it's self-reflection on what are you doing to make that environment not a nice place, and how can you call out your peers to be able to have that same reflection.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, it's like women and femmes are obviously like interested in these disciplines, in STEM disciplines, but what we're not interested in is like the culture of a workplace, right?
Yes.
Or of a club or whatever that is, you know, it's right now masculine or like male dominated, and it's just not fun to be a hyper minority in a group.
Not at all. Absolutely not at all.
Yeah.
And what frustrates me the most is that this goes down all the way into the young ages, in the way that we talk to young girls, and the way that we market to moms and young girls. And I just think of even just something as simple as like a NASA t-shirt. Why are the NASA t-shirts only in the boys section? Why are the dinosaurs and the cars only in the boys section? Like, there's nothing about those things that is only boys. It's just the way that we've kind of framed it over time. And we've got very large problems to solve on this planet. And I think we should want all hands on deck, right? I feel like we should be doing everything we can to remove barriers, to encourage anyone that's excited about solving these challenges to be able to do their best work. And there are a ridiculous amount of unnecessary barriers and stereotypes and lack of kind of belonging that we've placed for young girls. And it's extremely frustrating to me. So we need to look at the world around us, and we need to have more empathy and place ourselves in the shoes of others and understand, you know, if we are losing a lot of people in this space, why is that happening? I don't think it's because girls are built different. I think it's because of the environment. And so one thing that Rock Automation did that I was very proud of a while back is they helped our male leaders understand what it was like. Because sometimes when you're in the environment and you've been in it for a long time, you think it's normal. You haven't seen anything different, and it's not necessarily that you're a bad person. It's just you have these unconscious bias that's kind of in the way. So what they did is they sent some of our male executives to the Society of Women Engineers conference. They made sure they had very different schedules so that they couldn't buddy up and go to the same kind of workshops and events. And the feedback we got is that a lot of them felt what it was like to be the only person in the room for the first time, and to be a little bit nervous to raise your hand and ask a question or to bring up a point. And it just helped them be much better allies, because they were able to see a little bit of that unconscious bias that may have been kind of preventing them from being the best, creating the best environment that they could for other women in the company.
Wow, that like really rocks my brain, because just to a side response to that, like if the first time in your life is like as well into your adulthood, it's like the first time you're feeling like marginalized and like the only one of your kind in a room, like, and that comes out, like, I don't know, I grew up feeling that way in a lot of situations. I'm sure you both have too, where you're like looking around and you're like, one of these things is not like the other.
All the time.
It's often.
Yeah, but also to speak to what you were saying earlier, when I was thinking about this topic earlier in the week, I would go down these rabbit holes and thinking like, it's so much bigger than like STEM and gender and all this stuff. And I started thinking back to like all the other intersections of social expectations and gender roles and stuff. And like Jay, like you were saying, it goes back to like what we market for kids and toys, and like that has nothing to do with, you know, STEM companies and industries, but it all like feeds into that. And like, you know, we're raised to like fulfill these expectations and gender roles. And so it really relies on people kind of subverting that and like questioning it and retaliating it, and just like being like, why are things this way? But we also can't rely on everyone kind of like questioning all that.
And I think we sometimes put ourselves in unhappy situations. So my wife and I, for example, she cooks and I do the dishes, and neither of those really had to do with anything of me expecting her to cook or whatever, but she enjoys cooking and she hates washing the dishes. I've had like on Valentine's Day, I cook for her, like that we swap roles on Valentine's Day, and I get so stressed trying to cook. And so like if let's say for whatever reason society said the man should cook and the woman should do the dishes, we would both be miserable, right? Yeah. And so it's like, how do you work together to help people get into the positions that they can do the best work and enjoy what they're doing, regardless of where they come from or what they look like or what gender they are. It's just how we got to make space for people to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've even had the different kind of like gendered expectations coming from my own family. And it is really, really hard to contend with, especially I would say like a lot of different beauty standards and a lot of like career expectations for me to follow a certain path and to do things a certain way. And, you know, sometimes when I show up to family events and, you know, my Timberlands with my safety glasses, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make some robots with my cousins. Everyone's like, why are you doing this? This is horrible. And, you know, they have kind of a preconceived notion of how they want me to act and how they want to interact with those in the world around me. And that can be a lot of pressure sometimes. Like, I'm afraid to sometimes even dress in a feminine way when I go to design conferences because I know that people will not take me as seriously. And they'll assume that I don't know as much about a topic when what I wear and how I present myself has absolutely nothing to do with the amount of things that I know. It's like, why don't you just ask me about robots instead? But it's really hard to get past those preconceived notions that people have. And it kind of feels like every single day just existing in engineering is like a protest. And that can be really, really hard to contend with because you have to not only hold up to your own expectations of yourself, you have to hold up to everyone else's expectations. And it's like a bombard. People will have no filter, you know, and sometimes it can be a lot. Even some of my young male students, sometimes they let their biases come in and they're like, girls aren't meant to be here. What are they doing? And I realized I needed to invest more in, you know, programs for girls so that they could thrive in their environments and not feel like they constantly had to, you know, defy everyone's expectations all the time. But it is really difficult because it starts at such a young age.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And in the end, it doesn't matter. Like if the person who cures cancer was wearing a suit or a t-shirt or flip-flops, like I don't care. All I want is for people to not have to suffer through that. Same with like think of any problem, clean energy. Like if the person who creates, you know, who has that idea in their mind to create an engine that doesn't pollute is more comfortable, you know, wearing their hair down or their hair up or whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Let's like celebrate their genius and not the, you know, the style of how they wear their, you know, certain things. And I've kind of went through that more recently and just understanding that because I've been growing my hair out and the stress that you put on yourself to make sure that you're looking right takes away so much time from creativity, from, you know, spending time working on the projects that you're passionate about. And so, I mean, when I work with kids, I like to wear STEM t-shirts because that's how I'm going to connect with them. And if my industry is saying that I should wear a suit, we're not going to connect with that kid at the same level. And so I think we need to look past all of these things and just think about what's the best for the future.
I totally agree.
Yeah. But then thinking about, sorry, we just gotta, there are comments. Okay, sorry. Yes, okay. Would love to hear more about the intersection between STEM and humanities. Yeah, that's also something, okay. So picking up from things that you both said, it's like, how can we bring more women into STEM? But also, I also question this like binary of like STEM and humanities at all. And maybe it's also bringing STEM closer to the humanities and seeing how they really are at play together. Like it's all intersectional in every way, like everything's intertwined.
Yeah, I think the more that technology is more and more a part of every single person's life now from the time that they're born. I mean, I've seen 1-year-olds learn how to unlock an iPhone and, you know, get around on things. And one of my best friends, her son's first word was Alexa.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Whoa.
It's absolutely insane and kind of mind-blowing how close our young people are to technology. If you ask a child to take a photo now, they won't go like this. They go like this because they're used to taking a photo with a cell phone and not with a camera, right? And so there's all these changes happening very quickly, and it's literally everywhere. So the way I approach it now is I try to understand what students are already passionate about and then show them the STEM and the math and the science behind those things. Instead of saying you should do STEM versus humanities, or you should, instead of being a basketball player, you should be a computer scientist. Let's connect the science and math that is definitely there somewhere to what they're already passionate about, because that's what then inspires them to go on and do really cool things in that space. There's a very small percentage of the population that loves math just to do math, right? It's usually what you can do with the equation that matters, not the equation itself that matters. And so if we can help young girls see that from a young age, that there is math and science behind what they already like, what they're excited about, not what other engineers are doing or what the stereotypes around manufacturing mean, but that it basically just boils down to problem solving, and they can solve whatever problem they're excited about. I think we can have a significant impact on everyone, but especially young girls.
I totally agree with that. And in my own role as an educator, like I work with 35 youth robotics teams. I'm always working with kids. And something that I push my students to do is use, as I call, their STEAM superheroes, so science, tech, engineering, art, and math, and to learn their unique skills. And if they have to do it through a robot, if they have to do it through environmental classes, however they have to do it, discover their superpowers that are unique to them that they can use to solve the problems that they see around them. And for some kids, it's robotics. For some kids, it's math. Some kids, it's an intersection of both. It depends for every single child. But when I was younger, I saw kind of like engineering as a very like strict thing, because my dad's in manufacturing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go into manufacturing, please, no. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized biorobotics was a thing, and that I could emulate biological organisms either mechanically or chemically. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a disaster at chemistry. And then in the past few months, I've been getting into it more and more. And I realized like it is a journey, and I can develop my superheroes at super skills, and I can just, keep on pushing forward. And that was really challenging at first, because I was my own limiter in that way. Like I was like, I'm just not interested in that. And I didn't realize how vast STEAM is and what I could apply it to. And now that I know that, I want to teach other kids that, because it's so, so cool. I mean, we can make robots every day. What? I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would love to see your work more, but they're really not so far apart. And like, yeah, Jay, to your point, like the humanities, like everything's borrowing from tech now, like everything's just integrated. And so I also love the idea that like, you don't have to be a mathematician to be doing math. Like, the idea is that we're all practicing and like involved with math and science and just STEM things without having to like be in the industry. Like I can be I don't know, an author or a dancer or whatever, but like I'm still, I don't know, incorporating and practicing and living out STEM. And I think that approach and like normalizing that narrative, or just in like wrapping that into our cultural understanding, would also help like be more inclusive of, women, girls, and femmes in the, like, whatever this STEM thing is. Like, I guess in my dream future, we wouldn't even have this idea of like STEM, because it just
it blends with everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Are there other thoughts? I feel like there's just like so much more we could go down, and a lot of good stuff was said. We're getting encouragement. Okay. Yes, we have. Okay. Mathematics itself, thanks Nigel, but mathematics itself can be one of the most inherently beautiful things in the universe. It is. And there's no gender gap or barrier to appreciating or seeing that. Yes. And then we have a math PhD. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Are there any other responses? I'm kind of at a loss of words right now.
So Danielle, how did you first get started? You're still very young, but you started doing this work at an even younger age.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's something that really, I know you've had some challenges along the way and some things that kind of pushed you off, but what really was that initial spark?
So I, at first, was really interested in Steve in a very crazy way. I really love to take apart things and to play pranks on my family. So I would take apart furniture, it would stick together, and then they would stand on it and it would collapse, and I'd like cackle in the corner. I was like, ah! And my parents are like, we need to get her a Lego set and an erector set, please, you know? And I remember decorating like a live circuit with a metal wire. I thought it was cool, and then I shocked myself, and I kept just rolling on. And my mom's an artist, my dad's an engineer, so I kind of feel like I have a meld of that. But I first started practicing STEAM when I've been homeschooled for most of my life, up until the middle of my sophomore year of high school, so a really long time. And I remember my little sister at a homeschool group was really interested in STEAM subjects, and they didn't offer any of that. I was like, we've got to do something, you know? And I saw animal puppets one day at the store, and I was like, what if I teach an animal science class? My mom was like, dude, you're 10 years old. What do you mean? You know, what do you mean teach a science class? And I was like, no. What if I wrote the curriculum? What if I made, you know, little worksheets and things? And I look back on them, it's the cutest thing. I ended up teaching a semester-long kindergarten class when I was 10 years old. And it taught a lot of skills, like don't give your students sugar before the class starts, you know, wait till the end. But it taught a lot of really interesting things. And I learned a lot about education as well as accessibility gaps and how a lot of resources, a lot of families can't afford, especially families from my communities. And I would see robots and they're like $500 for a kit. And I was like, there has to be, you know, kind of, we have to meet in the middle somehow. But when I got to high school, I just kind of felt that slipping away a lot. I felt, you know, that passion. I didn't really know what to do with it. I felt, you know, a lot of people were like, oh, women, you know, you guys aren't meant for engineering. I let those words get to me, and I let those words take me down. And, you know, everyone from mentors to my peers were all, I felt kind of against women in engineering. And it wasn't until I started my own organization in 2019 that I was like, okay, I finally feel like I have an environment where I can feel safe to learn and to fail, because that is so important in the learning process. You don't have, if you feel like you have to be perfect all the time, you're not going to learn at the same rate that you would if you allow yourself to sometimes not be very good at everything. And that was only, you know, recently. I didn't feel that way for so long. And I'm glad that I finally have that space now. But it is still a huge work in progress, even in the, you know, my classroom at university, because I'm studying electrical and mechanical engineering. It is a huge, you know, it is a huge gap between my nonprofit and then the outside environments in the world. I mean, I was so excited this year. I was looking at new conferences. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to see so many more minorities and women headlining conferences. It's 2021, right? I look, and there was even less for some of them. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You know, I was so furious, especially a lot of companies I've even worked with. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then ring, I get a call, and they're like, last minute, like a week before many of the events, they're like, hey, Danielle, we need you to help us on the main stage for da-da-da. And I was like, I hate feeling like an afterthought. They just don't want to look bad, you know? They want to say, oh, we have X amount of women, or we have women, you know, kind of, and they just throw us in last minute. And that can be really demoralizing, because I tell my students, I'm like, it's getting better. And then you go to these events and you're like, they don't even see themselves. I don't see myself represented, and I'm even up there sometimes. And it's just a really, I think, long journey to, creating that needed change.
Yeah, Danielle, you've like mentioned several times now this the notion, or just like the many times that it's been like messaged to you. It's this like explicit messaging, but also the implicit messaging. And I guess like, yeah, to respond back to that, I think, and then it goes to this bigger idea that, appreciating math and STEM and like all that stuff, like while it's not inherently gendered, like the messaging is so gendered, and the stigmas that are there, and like you just have to like we have to like rely on people just being like so resilient, and like because clearly you are so resilient, and you have that personality type to be like, well, I'm gonna see that and like say no to that, and I'm gonna do it despite that. And I feel like I also have that in me. Like a big part of my like identity is like rebelling against my expectations that are imposed on me, but like that just can't be it, or the culture, which is like why it comes back to that whole self-reflection bit, and also what does action mean and look like. It can't be checking off boxes, meeting quotas or whatever, because like that's not sustainable. It has to be like a culture shift, and like who are you listening to, who are you believing to, who are you like asking for advice from, and like really valuing that advice.
Yeah, I also think it's down to, when I do diversity training, people are like, well, how do I do this? And the first thing I say is, who are your friends and who are the people that you surround yourself with? Who are you following on social media? If all your friends and all the people you follow on social media all look like you, then there's a problem, because there are so many opportunities to diversify the space around you and to have meaningful relationships with everyone. And that it sometimes is kind of a difficult thing, I think, to kind of get that idea through. And I remember I even had an argument with someone. They're like, well, why do you care who I follow? And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you, but like, you are influenced by what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis, the people that you're following, the perspectives that they have to offer. Even from a cultural competency standpoint, it's positive to surround yourself with different people. And that can be so hard sometimes for a lot of people, I think, to say, okay, why does this matter? But especially from like a hiring standpoint or a diversifying their workplace standpoint. But you surround yourself, the people you surround yourself with also influence your hiring decisions. You usually hire like people you know, or you have connections through other people that you know. Like, it's a network, right? Like, if you don't have that network starting out, how are you going to make that change? And it's been good to be able to kind of get that perspective through to a lot of like white male engineers, that they need to, even for the sake of their kids, for the sake of their community, for the sake of their workplace, to diversify. But also, who doesn't want to know cool people? Like, I just think it's so cool. Like, I don't see a ton of Native people in STEAM, and that can be really difficult sometimes. And a lot of the times organizations, they'll pick one Native person in a lineup. And again and again, I'm like, why can't there be more of us? Why does it have to be 10 men and one Native woman? Why can't we see more people, Native people of all different skin tones and backgrounds and cultures? There's so many of us, right? And having that conversation, I think, is important, because I think people forget. I really do. Like, they don't think, let's go through my Instagram. Who am I following? My Twitter. Who am I following? And it's like, there's so many cool people out there.
It's true.
I think that's also a huge challenge from the student perspective, in terms of what they see. Especially now, in terms of they're much less likely to be able to interact with an engineer, or go on a company tour, or have someone come and present at their school about science and technology and math, because of the pandemic and many other challenges going on. And so if the students aren't seeing anyone in the space, they don't have anyone in their family that's studied this before, that there's very small chance that they'll be able to view themselves in that space. So I think there's a couple of really important things that anyone can do in order to help with that. Part of it is in the way that we talk about STEM and STEAM and how we look for students for these opportunities. A lot of times it's the students that are already good at math and science and that like to take things apart. And oftentimes we look towards the boys versus the girls. When the only real requirement to be a STEM person is to be curious. So it doesn't matter, like that all will come along in the end. We just need to make sure that we're looking for young people that are curious and excited and helping them connect the dots between what they're curious about and the skills that they can use to kind of make the world a better place in that space. And then also from the flip side, us as adults, teachers, professionals, anyone that's trying to support young girls in this space, making sure that we're reaching the communities that don't hear us all the time, reaching the communities that didn't have these type of role models growing up. And you know, one of the scariest things for me is that some of the best problem solvers in the world could have just been born in the wrong zip code. And that's one of the most frustrating, scary things in my mind. And oftentimes we like to go back to where we went to school or into our backyard and not realizing that a lot of those students have the resources they need. And so how do we make sure that we're reaching the communities that don't have that and providing them with the things that they need to be able to make the impact that they all can have as long as they're just curious?
Yeah, and I think we need to think about as individuals the message that we put out there, because young people pay attention. They pay attention to who we're following, the people that we're around. They pay attention to what political party we identify with. Kids are paying attention to that. They're paying attention if you support LGBTQ people. They're paying attention to what you're saying about celebrities and what you're saying with racial undertones. What they're paying attention. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind, because that in of itself can turn a student off from the work that you're doing, or it can turn a student off from, wanting to work with you or wanting to learn from you. And I even see that in my own, life, because if I see someone online and I'm like, oh my gosh, they, don't support queer people. Well, I'm not going to put myself in a position to feel unsafe. I'm not going to put myself in a position to feel like, all of a sudden someone is going to not want me around just, based on something I can't control. And I think we need to keep that in mind, because our beliefs, it's like we may have them for whatever reason, but we need to consider about how they're impacting others, because it's more than just ourselves and our perspectives and our biases. It's also those around us too.
Absolutely.
Snap.
Yeah. I mean, and then the way that both of you just like made it super intersectional, right? Like it's so, because again, when I was thinking about women in STEM, I started branching out. I'm like, it's so much bigger than women in STEM. It is like access, it's wealth and equality, it's resources, it's race, it's gender and sexuality. It's all those things, and ableism and ageism. It's like, so then it's just interrogating like STEM itself and just how this industry has like where it is now and where it's going. And I don't know, I guess I'm really grateful that at least, your two voices are in it and advocating for like a better, brighter, more inclusive STEM future, where maybe it's not even called STEM anymore, like we said, right? Like, abolish binaries and all that. I don't know. Are there any, I feel like this is maybe a good place to wrap up. Are there any like parting thoughts or reflections, or what's the future? I feel like
I just wanted to turn people onto an awesome organization that I absolutely love. It's called the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. And the work that they're doing for everyone from middle school to high school to college Native students is so, so important. And they need every single mind on deck. They need people to review students' resumes. They need people who can help volunteer at virtual events. I mean, they have a leadership summit coming up. They have a lot of different opportunities to get involved and share your knowledge with others. And I think that's just so important, to use the skills that you have right now and to use that to help a lot of young people, because I think we sometimes tend to feel a little bit lost, and a lot of us don't have mentors, and a lot of us don't have people that can help us in that journey. Like even thinking from the perspective of just inventing things. There's so many things I didn't know when I was getting started, and we need people to help us. And so I totally suggest checking out that organization and getting involved. Also, the National Society of Black Engineers is so, so awesome. So definitely check out those organizations and see how you can get involved. No matter what your background is, we need people who are dedicated to diversifying STEAM and STEM. So yeah, check it out. And I also just wanted to thank Jay. He's the reason I'm here. He tagged me to comment, so that's why I'm here. And I just wanted to thank him. He is so awesome. I met him 2 years ago, I think, when I was, yeah, it was right after I graduated. And I was at the first Detroit World Championship. And I remember I'd been following him for ages. I thought his work was so cool. And so it's awesome to be here because the work that he's doing is so amazing. Be sure to like follow him on TikTok and Instagram because it's just so awesome and inspirational.
I appreciate that. And thank you for all that you're doing because you inspired me on the other side as well. I'll add Society of Women Engineers and Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers to those lists that Danielle shared. And then my kind of parting thought is to just do something to elevate someone in this space this month. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be as small as, just like we just mentioned, bringing someone up on a stage. Providing your platform, whether that's you have a lot of followers on a social media platform and you know, interviewing a female on there. If you don't know where to start, I've got plenty of videos on my YouTube channel that you can share with young people that are fun science experiments called It's Not Magic, It's Science. So you can just go to Jay Flores, look it up on YouTube, or go to my website, jfloresinspires.com, and you can grab something that you can just share with a young person. Everything I designed with equity in mind, so it's stuff that doesn't cost a lot of money and is very inclusive to everyone. So just think about like a couple of those things that you can do. Sharing a good piece of content with a young person, elevating a female in STEM this year, helping increase that the voice and the space that they have to share their experiences and their kind of wonderful contributions to the area. And then finally, just to remember, whenever we're thinking about this thing, that we need all hands on deck for these challenges, whether that's to cure cancer, whether it's to climate change, whatever the big challenge that you're passionate about, just think about it from that lens. So if cancer has impacted your family, wouldn't you want every single person that you could get helping your family member solving that problem? I think so. And so whether that's cancer or something else that you're particularly very passionate about, let's make sure that we're inspiring every single young girl, every single young boy, everyone that we can to come and kind of make their little seed of impact in that space.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, because everyone has a part to play in, solving our world's most challenging problems. And we all have assets and, skills and interests and passions to bring to the table, all inherently curious, right? And so we can all access these problems and work together on them. And I really appreciate the plugs. Those all sound like amazing organizations to look into and support. And what a gift it is to have met and speak with you both today, and the work that you're doing for just advocating for a more inclusive STEM field. And I guess my last thought, for people to part ways with is just, that self-reflection bit and what role do we each play in either, upholding, perpetuating, or challenging the status quo, and how warm are we being, or how much do we believe and give clout to people who don't historically have it, and how can we empower marginalized people and share power, break down power, and I don't know, that's what needs to happen to make that bright future, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you, and I look forward to continuing this work with you both.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, and everyone else that's listening in, feel free to throw questions or comments in the chats, and we'll probably go in later and continue the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And you can check out my website at www.steamconnection.org. I have cool open source bots, so be sure to check out the free robots.
Super cool. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.